Hi there. Today we'll take a look at the reduce method. So what is it? Well, it's a function that iterates through an array. It accepts a callback function, and this callback can take up to 4 arguments. First, you pass an accumulator, which accumulates all of the return values from the callback. Then we have the current element. Optionally, you can pass in the index at the current iteration, as well as the array that reduce is being called on. You can then pass in a second argument, and that is what you want the initial value of the accumulator to be. If this is not defined, then the first value, the value at index 0, will be the accumulator start value, and we will start the callback at the next element in the array. Now, reduce returns a single value, which is the final accumulator value. And a common use case for reduce would be summing up all the values in an array. Okay, so let's see how to write one in code. So we've got an existing array here called numbers. What we can do is declare a variable named sum, and then we can call reduce on the array, and in the callback, we'll pass in ACC for the accumulator, and then X for the current element. Then we will add ACC and X together at each iteration. Finally, we can pass a start value of 0 as the second argument to the reduce function. Now, let's go ahead and log the result and see what happens. Cool, so we get one single value, which is a total of all of the accumulated values. On to some theoretical questions. So, what happens if you don't provide an initial value to reduce? Well, the first element will become the start point for the accumulator, and we begin iterating on the second element. Can reduce be used on objects? So, not directly, because reduce is an array method, but you could get an array of keys from the object using object.keys, and from there you could use reduce on the array of keys. And lastly, explain some use cases for using reduce. So some use cases might be to sum up all the values from an array, to identify unique values, as well as to flatten nested arrays. Okay, on to some coding questions. Return a sum from an object. Cool, so we have an object here where each day of the week has its day's total of earnings. We'll want to accumulate the earnings at each day. So we can first call a new variable called total earnings, and then we can call object.keys to get all the keys from the week of earnings. And as a reminder, object.keys returns an array of keys from the specific object that is passed in. If you wanted to, you could store that in its own variable, but we'll just chain reduce to the array of keys. Then we can call reduce, and we'll pass in ACC and keyval to the callback. Then inside the callback, we will add ACC to the week of earnings at that specific key. So Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, all the way to Sunday. Then we'll just want to initialize the accumulator to 0. We can then log our total and see that it is in fact a sum of all the values. Lastly, you might be asked to flatten a nested array. So there is an elegant approach that we can use, but obviously elegant approaches can be hard to understand. So what we're going to do here is we will call reduce on the array that is provided, which is R. Then we'll pass an accumulator called ACC and the current element named item to the callback. Inside of the callback, we're going to check that the item is an array by using the isArray method. And if it is, then we will recursively call the function whenever the item we're looking for is an array. Otherwise, we'll use concat to concatenate single values. So these would be like a number 7 or a string goose. Finally, we'll want to add an initial value, and we will add an empty array since we want to return an array. Now, let's go ahead and log our result. And we can see here that we in fact get a flattened array. Okay, that's it for today's episode. Thank you so much for watching. Please like and subscribe if you enjoyed the content, and I look forward to seeing you in the next one.